Week 17, Giants season officially over. It was a season where I didn't expect to make the playoffs. I sat here in August and projected 8-8. I really wanted to say 7-9. I didn't want to get roasted too badly, so I went with 8-8 just to be fair. The Giants ended up going 5-11 for the whole season. Another game where they put up a lot of points today. They were not able to close it out, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy about that because I was rooting for the Cowboys. I know some people wanted to root for the Giants for pride reasons and all that kind of crap, but at the end of the day, I mean, the difference between 5 draft picks, 5 spots in the draft can be a huge difference between landing a guy who might be a cornerstone of your franchise and, who knows, it's stuff like that that makes a big difference. So I really wanted to lose today, guarantee a better pick, and luckily we were able to do so. It seemed like for about 5 seconds we won that game. And then the Cole Beasley replay showed us that his knee was down in bounds, and they counted it as a touchdown. Giants were not able to convert on their next drive with about a minute left, and resulting in a loss. I believe the score was like 36-35 or something like that. And I remember saying last week that I hope the Giants put up a lot of points and they lose a close game. And it kind of went exactly as I wanted it to, so I can't be mad at it. But there was a point where I thought the Giants were going to win that game for sure. So, I really didn't need that kind of mini heart attack. But it is what it is. We're 5-11. I'm going to do quick math real quick. So over the last 2 years, the Giants are now, that would be 8-25. Is that it? 8-24? That sounds right, yeah. Yeah, 8-24 over the last 2 years. I don't know what happened to Giants football. I really don't. I mean, this is unbelievable. If you told me this was going to happen like a few years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. But the Giants at this point are they don't know what they're doing. They've held on to their quarterback way too long. And you guys know, if you listen to me, about how I feel about Eli Manning at this point. I was hoping that this morning we were going to get an alert saying this was going to be his last start as a Giant. And, people, of course, want to say I'm an Eli hater, all that kind of stuff. And I don't mean it as a hatred towards Eli Manning. I mean, I always said he's one of my favorite athletes. But I'm living in the year 2018. I feel like a lot of Giants fans are still living in 2010. So I see the writing on the wall. And I know that the time has to come to an end soon. And it's hard because, Eli is the only Giants quarterback that a lot of us have ever known, especially the younger fans like myself. But I realize that it's 2018. Mobile quarterbacks rule the NFL. If you look at the best quarterbacks in football nowadays, I mean, if you've watched Deshaun Watson, for example, his offensive line, and same with like Russell Wilson a few years ago, their offensive lines were so bad, but those guys are such talented players and know how to, maneuver in a pocket and can make plays outside of the pocket. We can't do that with a quarterback like Eli Manning. I mean, there's no upside left for him. He's going to be 38 next year, I think it is. I mean, it's just going to get worse and worse. I mean, if you bring Eli back next year with a similar roster, which I don't know how the Giants are going to be able to have this, roster turn into something great next year. I mean, it's going to be like a couple-year rebuild. I hate to tell you folks that, but it's true. The Giants are going to be competitive for another couple of years at least. And, a lot of it, set them back this year when they decided to take a running back second overall. I've said it since, my first commentary back in February before the draft, and when I said what I think the Giants should do this offseason, and, I wanted them to draft Baker Mayfield initially, and then I said Josh Rosen when I realized that wasn't a possibility. So, obviously, Josh struggled with the Cardinals this year, but that whole team is just so trash, so I kind of just want to throw that year out the window. I still think he's talented, and he'll still be a pretty good quarterback in this league, so, time will tell with that one. And, I've always said it's not a knock on Saquon Barkley. I mean, a lot of you may listen to me and say, oh, this guy just hates our players and stuff like that. I rip on Eli Manning a lot, and I rip on the franchise's decision to draft a running back second overall when your quarterback is 37 years old and clearly declining. But the reality is that Saquon Barkley had about as good a year as you could have asked for, had over 2,000 total scrimmage yards, and, as I said, had a great year and did as much as a rookie running back can do, right? The guy's 21, 22 years old, out of Penn State, a lot of pressure, did everything right. Believe he played every game this year. I think he had 2 bad games out of the whole season, and that was towards the tail end when, they were basically out of the playoffs and they were playing against tough defenses that knew what they were doing. And I'll give him credit because the Cowboys defense that we played today is a very good defense. He still had a nice game against them. I'll get into the stat lines later and stuff like that. But that was my whole idea in my thinking that, even if Saquon came out and had a terrific year, the Giants weren't going to be a good team. I mean, for the people that thought we were just one running back away from being a competitive team, that's absolutely foolish. And I hope you realize that that's not the reason. We can have the greatest running back of all time on this roster, but it's not going to result in wins. Running backs don't win games in the NFL. We saw this with Todd Gurley, who was recently injured. I forget what the injury was, some kind of knee inflammation or something. And then they bring in C.J. Anderson off the street, and the guy puts up 180 rushing yards, out of nowhere. I definitely don't value the running back position as much as other people do. And I'll admit, the running back position has changed in the NFL. You have to be a good receiver, which Saquon is one of the best at receiving. But, he's great at what he does, but that position does not impact a game enough. I've always said I think the most important position on the field undoubtedly is the quarterback position, and then followed by defensive line and offensive line. And then you fill in the gaps elsewhere. I mean, the Giants are just very weak at those positions right now. You look at the quarterback position, I think Eli Manning is probably, one of the bottom half quarterbacks in this league, to put it nicely. And their offensive line is mediocre at best, and their defensive line does not get enough pressure at all. So, the Giants' defensive line will never disrupt the game with this kind of personnel. I think they have some good players on there. I like Dalvin Tomlinson. I like B.J. Hill, who I recently made a highlight video about, and, he was good this year at some points. But guys like Olivier Vernon, Mario Edwards, whoever it is, Josh Morrow, they just weren't consistent. They weren't good enough, and these kind of guys were not getting the job done. And, I've always been an advocate of getting a quarterback in the draft, but in this draft where, even with Justin Herbert going back to school, which I think is an idiot, he's an idiot for doing that, but it is what it is. And, there's going to be a lot of great defensive players on the board. I think if Dwayne Haskins is off the board at our pick, I think we're going to take a great pass rusher, and hopefully that'll impact our defense in a great way. I think pass rushing is a huge key to winning games. We saw it with our two Super Bowl teams, that when they were able to rattle, what people say is the greatest quarterback of all time, we were able to beat him, and that kind of thing will win you games in the NFL. So we need to build defensive line, quarterback, offensive line. There's a lot of stuff we need to do differently, and I wish some fans would change their mindset and kind of open their eyes. I've noticed over, the whole season. I mean, I remember after week 2, which was against Dallas, I came on and bashed Eli Manning, and I bashed the organization once again for taking a running back. In that game, Saquon had 14 catches for 80 yards. It was dump off central for Eli Manning. His completion percentage looked great, and everyone wants to talk about that, but I'm not buying that nonsense. But you're sitting here with a running back. Your team's not competitive. The Giants lost that Dallas game pretty easily. I think they lost I forget the score now. It was probably 18-10, 17-10. They had a garbage time touchdown, I think it was. So they had that game lost at halftime. We kind of knew it already. They weren't moving the ball whatsoever, and it was just one of those games that you knew that it was typical Giants football. Nothing was going to change. After week 1, I was kind of optimistic. They played what we all thought was a good Jaguars team. They played them pretty well, but they ended up being trash too. So looking back on it, they probably should have won that game. But, I'll get into the whole season review. I'll do a separate video about that. I have a lot of Giants videos coming up in the future. So, there's a lot of things that just went wrong this season, and I'll try to get into all that. But back to the whole Saquon pick. I mean, if the Giants had a quarterback like a Sam Darnold or a Josh Rosen behind Eli Manning, there would be a lot more optimism for this franchise right now. So, the worst case for the Giants right now is this, right? So you pass on a quarterback, okay, Lamar Jackson's looking really good. Josh Allen's even looking really good. Darnold shows flashes, and Rosen shows flashes. Baker has been pretty damn good this year, but we couldn't get him, obviously. But still, that's my boy at the end of the day. So, it's still unfortunate we weren't able to get him. But then again, the Giants are never going to take a shot on a guy like Baker Mayfield. They're just not the type of organization that would do that. And that's kind of why I switched over to Rosen, because I've realized that the Giants would never take a guy with the personality of Baker Mayfield. But it is what it is. That's a different story. Now I forget what I was talking about. So what I was talking about was the worst case scenario for this team at quarterback. So basically next year you're forced to go into 2019 with a 38-year-old Eli Manning, who I think is, I personally believe, and I'm going to get heat for this, is a bottom 5 quarterback in the league right now if all starters are healthy. I mean, obviously there's guys like Josh Johnson and Jeff Driscoll who I'm going to exclude those people, but, I'm talking about when everyone's healthy. I think Eli's a bottom 5 quarterback in this league right now, so you can hate me all you want for saying it, but that's what I just think. But, when you have a 38-year-old quarterback who has no mobility and is declining every year, you're up the creek. The Giants are not going to win many games next year. I don't think they're going to win more than 6 if they bring back a similar roster. And there weren't many injuries to this team. It's not like they had devastating injuries. It's not like Janoris Jenkins was injury-riddled all season. It's not like Saquon Barkley was missing games. Odell missed 4 games at the end, but they were already out of it at that point. They were relatively healthy this season. Nate Solder stayed healthy, played all 16. Will Hernandez was healthy, played all 16. Stuff like that. They did have injuries to the center position and stuff like that, but for the most part, they were pretty healthy this season. So you can't blame the season on injuries. I think a legitimate excuse is that they weren't used to Pat Shurmur's system yet. It takes a while to get acclimated to that, and I understand that, but, we saw a different Giants team coming out of the bye as compared to the first, 8-9 weeks of the season. But, it is what it is. Your record is, you are what your record says you are. Giants are 5-11, and they're a 5-win football team. There are a few games they definitely should have won, and they could have been 8-8, but they still wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway. So, it is what it is. I'm tired of making excuses for this team. But I want to get back to the point I was making. So, basically, they're stuck with Eli Manning next year. I think they have a chance to sign Teddy Bridgewater. They have a chance to sign Nick Foles. They have a shot to draft Dwayne Haskins, possibly. I'm not really sure if he'll be left at that point. He's really the only quarterback that people say should be a top 10 pick this year. If Kyler Murray comes out, that'll be interesting, but I really don't see the Giants taking that kind of risk because, the Giants are definitely a risk-adverse organization, and they would not take a shot on like a 5'9" quarterback, even though I think he's electric and he's going to pan out if he plays in the NFL, but we'll see what happens. I really don't know. And, there's definitely some free agents out there, but no one that's going to change the organization. I think it's just time to cut ties with Eli Manning. I'm tired of, kind of... what's the word? I'm kind of tired of going down this road every single year. It's been 3 years now where you can see Eli Manning is not the same guy he used to be, and we go into every season saying, well, if we plug this hole, then he'll be all right. If we add a left tackle, everything will be fine. You spend a shit ton of money on Nate Solder, nothing really improved. Still a 5-win football team. You add him a running back. You say, okay, Orleans Darkwa, Paul Perkins, Rashad Jennings, they weren't great running backs. Let's add Saquon Barkley, a generational running back. You get all 16 games out of him. You still get 5 wins. He needs a tight end. Okay, we'll take Evan Engram in the first round. They won 3 games last year. Okay, he needs a third receiver. Let's get Victor Cruz back. Let's get Sterling Shepard. Nothing changes. The Giants won 11 games that one year and had nothing to show for. They laid an egg in Green Bay. Eli did play well that week. I'll give him that, but overall the team was not prepared, so I'm going to throw that out the window. But the last 2 years have been pitiful for this franchise, and the Giants are a laughingstock of the NFL right now. So it seems like the Jets are in a better position than us right now. You can argue that all you want, but at the end of the day, the Jets still have their franchise quarterback, which is the most important. I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold guy. I think he's going to be all right, and I'd rather have a 21-year-old Darnold than a 38-year-old Eli Manning, but as I said, it is what it is, and this is the hole we're in right now, and that's why I really wanted them to take a quarterback so we wouldn't be in this position next year. We see a shitty Bills team get uplifted by Josh Allen, who scored 45 points on the Dolphins today. Stuff like that. A young quarterback with a lot of potential brings a lot of hope to a fan base, not a quarterback who's 37, 38 years old, who we've already seen the best of. We've seen the best of Eli Manning. I'll admit, Eli was really good in 2014 and 2015 with, Ben McAdoo's new offense. He has not been that same guy since, and it's been 3 years since then. I know things aren't going to change. I just know that. But the Giants are just too afraid of going a different direction and cutting ties with Eli Manning that I'm sure next year we'll be sitting in the same situation. We'll be like a 5-6 win team with a 38-year-old Eli Manning saying, he needs this now. He needs a new right tackle. He needs this, that. Why can't we just realize he's not going to win games for us anymore? Eli Manning's the type of guy that needs a perfect environment. The Giants are far from a perfect environment. We are not a good football team. And for the people that thought we were going to compete this year, it's kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? I want to be optimistic. I love this team, but I'm realistic. I knew that the Giants had too many holes to fill. that they weren't going to be a good football team. I saw 8 wins max, maybe 9 if they were lucky, but things didn't break the right way, so it is what it is. Now you're 5-11. And, people are going to say Pat Shurmur deserves to be fired, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think Pat Shurmur did a pretty good job this year. Some things could have been better, but I think overall, if you look at a game like today, Pat Shurmur's game plan today was terrific. They played a really good defense, I should say. I don't know how many starters they were benching. I think for the most part, their starters were in for Dallas, and that was a game they really wanted to win, it seemed like. I don't know why, but they wanted to win it. And the Giants put up 35, 34 points on them. So I think they did a great job, and I think Pat Shurmur is being underrated by people. I think if Shurmur gets a quarterback that he wants, then I think they'll do some special things next year. And, Pat Shurmur has quotes like, Eli's my guy. I have full belief in him. I want him to be my quarterback next year. Hopefully it's all just like coach speak, and that's just stuff he's saying to kind of just be nice and not raise eyebrows from the media or cause too much attention. I really have no idea what the Giants are going to do. But as I'm saying, if I was running the organization, I would cut ties with Eli Manning. I'm going to make a video like I did last year about what I think the Giants should do this offseason, including cuts, roster moves, free agent signings, and draft picks, all that kind of crap. So I will get into that eventually. So yeah, this is a 16-minute rant about the Giants this season. Let's get into the game right now before this gets too long. So the Cowboys obviously sat Ezekiel Elliott, and they played most of their other starters, I believe. There's not really anyone else I could think of that was missing in this game. Sean Lee hasn't played in a while, but I don't include him. So Dak Prescott had a ridiculous game, 27-44, 387 and 4. I don't think Dak Prescott should be throwing for 387 and 4 against anybody, but this defense kind of sucks, let's be honest. Blake Jarwin had one of those Jason Witten type games, and the Giants have had so many issues with tight ends over the years, especially in recent years, and this Blake Jarwin dude goes for 7 catches, 119 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They really need to fix that next year. And it's not like if Landon Collins was here, things would be different, because Landon Collins has coverage issues of his own. So, that's a whole nother story. Cole Beasley, 6 for 94 and a touchdown. That was pretty bad. Grant Haley was having a decent year, and Beasley is their slot guy, and today was not his day. But, Beasley did make that great catch at the end of the game. I love him for that. I definitely appreciate him beating my team and giving us a better draft pick, giving Cowboy fans false hope, even though they'll probably get eliminated in the first round, so that's all good with me. And the Giants' tackling is still an issue. There was that play with my man Curtis Riley, and I say my man sarcastically, where I think it was Jarwin actually, where he had, caught a ball up the seam or whatever, went by one guy, went by another guy, and then Curtis Riley gives the most half-assed tackle I've ever seen in my life. Where it literally looked like he was trying to lose. It's weird to say that, but the guy alligator armed the tackle, and I don't even think he touched Jarwin. I really don't. I think he literally just went right past him. And as a safety, you're the last line of defense. At least give an effort. I don't care because it's week 17 and you're a 5-win football team, but let's just say the Giants had to win this game today. If your safety gave that kind of effort, that guy better be, in street clothes at halftime. There's no reason to be playing football like that. But as I said, for this situation, I'll let it slide. Curtis Riley better not be anywhere near this football team next year unless he's playing for the green team, called the Jets. But I don't want anything to do with that guy. He's bad news. For the offense, Eli Manning, 24 of 41, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception in the end zone, and the 1 fumble/interception. I think they call it a fumble, so it is what it is. Eli's final stats of the year were basically 4,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And you look at those numbers, and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And it's not. I'll be honest, his numbers aren't that bad. But Eli Manning hasn't done anything this year to win us football games. It's not like Eli Manning was single-handedly winning us games, which you kind of need at some points from your quarterback. Winning 5 games is not too impressive, and Eli's been okay this year. He hasn't been pitiful, but at this point in his career, as I said, he needs everything to be perfect, and this team is not perfect at all. They need a quarterback that can make plays on his own. They need a guy who isn't afraid to take hits, and I kind of feel like Eli's a little gun-shy at this point. Doesn't want to take those big hits like he used to. Makes too many bad decisions for my liking. And, the upside is just not there anymore. Saquon Barkley, 17 carries, 109 yards, and a touchdown. He looked good. He looked like he was the old Saquon today. As I said, he had back-to-back off weeks, but this was a good one against a really good defense. Wayne Gallman was 6 for 23 and a touchdown. He looked pretty good himself. Evan Engram, it's kind of weird. It's like when Odell Beckham misses games, then Evan Engram automatically becomes a top 5 tight end in the league. And every time Odell's out, it's just weird how that works. It's kind of like those two are tied to each other. That like when Odell's missing, it's like okay, Evan Engram's playing like an All-Pro, and then when Odell's there, it's like oh yeah, what happened to Evan Engram? Like these guys don't coexist with each other. And that's kind of an issue, but I don't know, kind of just, it is what it is. Hopefully they fix that next year. Cody Latimer, who I said in my, preseason video was like my sleeper candidate for the Giants offense. I like Cody Latimer. I think he's very talented. His injuries are an issue, and I think he missed like over 10 games this year. He missed a lot. But he had 2 insane catches this year. The one-hander, two one-handers. One was for a touchdown. The other was just a big gain. But he had a really nice game today. Scored a touchdown as well, obviously. And Sterling Shepard was 4 for 67. He's done some pretty good things. Sterling Shepard's a fine number 2 receiver, slot receiver, whatever you want to call him. I'm not sure when his contract's up. It's probably pretty soon. So, we might have one more year of him on a rookie contract. I'm not sure, but I want to see Eli's highlights will look good. Eli Manning's highlights are going to look fine, but like he doesn't have the tools and consistency, that make it possible to win on an average team. That's just all I'm saying. Like I'm not saying Eli sucked this year, but like he was underwhelming and doesn't do enough to win you football games, plain and simple. I think Dak Prescott himself was doing a great job of extending plays and making key throws. There were a lot of plays today where Prescott was rolling out to his right and making big throws, and, he had the ones to Jarwin. I think he had one to Cooper. There were definitely a couple to Beasley as well, so I'll try to put those videos in here. And then I have a note. I already touched on this, but it was funny when I was watching the game. It said Curtis Riley needs to GTFO, which means get the F out for those unfamiliar. I can't stand that guy anymore. So yeah, now I'm 22 minutes in. I'm probably going to cut it here. I just want to thank everyone that has, been listening all season, all 17 weeks, and even before that. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to, have you guys watch in the offseason and next year. I really hope that we are more competitive next year. I don't know if my heart can handle another 3 to 5 win season. I hope they make the right decisions. I don't trust anyone in this organization to do so. If Eli Manning gets cut, that would be really nice. I hope they do it in a polite way where they have a press conference and have his jersey retired, all that good stuff. I hope it's a good breakup, but we'll see what happens. I'll have the season review video coming out soon. I'll have the What the Giants Should Do in 2019 video, and probably some other stuff. I definitely have highlight videos coming out. Lorenzo Carter, I'm gonna make. I already made Odell. I already made B.J. Hill. I have a Saquon one coming out, so there'll be a lot of Giants videos coming out and stuff like that. So if you know Giants fans, tell your friends, and if you don't follow me on Twitter and enjoy Giants rants and stuff like that, then please follow that as well. And once again, thank you everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.